Yes.
Really great to be here back. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I started here and I really appreciate the back here. And it's always feels like home. And I think I grew so much without your inspirational way of teaching. So my question is, you have had 53 apprentices so far, right?
Yep, 53
Yeah,
so
53
far.
so far. How do you feel about having that many apprentices?
They all have found their own voice, which is really great. And well, Carter and Allison are finding their voices now.
Yeah.
Daniel is really finding his voice. Everyone has found their voice in creating, so the foundation has been a good foundation, but not overbearing, so that they would want to be part of a country club. That's a lot of these, philosophies become, is like some sort of country club. If you don't do it like your teacher did it, then you're out of the club.
So you're not expecting necessarily your student apprentices to be part, or if they found.
Well, sometimes they're still working in clay, but they may move in a direction that is more sculptural. So they start out with functionality of learning about the clay, but they may all of a sudden be inspired by something that moves in that kind of direction.
I've seen that often through this program.
Yeah. So, but they still have that balance between the respect for the materials and really wonderful relationship to their community and caring for the earth, and also being part of a maker's life, which is very important.
Maker's life means?
Makers that they're thinking about making, that their ideas come through and they become makers, informers and shapers.
You taught me about second nature, being inspired by the universe, sort of. And do you still feel the same direction? When you make
But I'm going at a different speed now.
different speed,
Yeah,
faster speed?
Well, the universe is, but I don't know about myself.
It seems like now you have established so many, the system here with apprentices. Unlike when I was here, you have sort of like freedom that you can make your own work,
Seems like it, but maybe, well, what do you think, Daniel? I think probably a little bit of both.
Because Daniel is a really good thrower now that you can teach new apprentices.
So the reason why that's important is that Allison and Carter, who are the new apprentices, they're 50 years younger than I am.
Really? Carter? Yeah.
Allison?
How old are you?
24.
24?
Yeah, they're 50 years younger than I am. So Allison is very, very involved in contemporary culture.
Yeah.
And so when you have an intermediary like Daniel, who's in his 30s, he's balancing between that culture of a younger generation and the older generation. So you have to have a new vocabulary for that next decade and that next decade and that next decade. Because America has a very hard time listening to old people compared to other cultures where that, Native American tradition where the elders would be able to pass on some sort of information. Or in, especially rural Japan, where that was generational transformation of communicating about nature and the environment and those earth cycles to the next generation. But we don't have as much of that structure in coming out of academic education or in a modern urban culture. So we have to have an intermediary of an individual that creates a new translation, a new freshness to those ideals. So that's how, you work. So Daniel then helps with a lot of the direction of the apprenticeship now, and then sometimes I can't help myself, but I interject.
Thank goodness.
I
Thank
just
goodness.
can't help myself. Yeah. So
3 generations are stronger than 1 or 2. Yeah.
So Daniel, do you make your own forms?
Yeah.
And make a sort of like a line of design here. Like this is I wanna change up a little bit, and then
Yeah.
because you
Yeah, I think
mugs.
what Richard was saying about finding vocabulary that really resonates.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much you relate to this too. The learning that happens here. It's like learning this language, and then to form your own sentence using that same language. There might be words in common. There might be some features that clearly carry into every aspect of the form. But still, it's I feel like what I've learned here is how to speak in my own sentences using the same vocabulary.
So it's still the same material. We're using the same clay together.
Same kiln.
Same kiln. And we're talking about different kinds of dialogues of the firing. His observations, my observations. And then it'll be Carter's observations, Allison's observations of the firing, or within their own work, they ask the question, and you try to not so much give them the answer, but give them different pathways, or try this, try this. So it's then allowing them to ask those questions and get a clarification for a direction. That's really important. And Daniel is answering the majority of those. So that, like if I go face down into the pizza, then somebody's there to take over.
One thing I find really inspiring in the same realm is the way that you and other former apprentices are clearly using what you learned here, and the way that the work of the studio is very much alive in your work, in the work of so many former apprentices, and to see that life, that practice extending out and taking different forms, I think it's just incredibly inspiring.
Yeah.
Incredibly helpful. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And as a person trying to develop forms and understand how can I translate what I'm learning here, it's here are some really incredible things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Absolutely.
Now it seems like you guys are working or simulate already how to load the kiln. So you make pieces how to load the kiln. It seems
Well, so what we do with all of that, Shumpei, is we are taking note of all of the artists that we're going to be firing the work. So you have not only made beautiful vases and beautiful tea bowls and dishes and you have made a whole series of dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Okay, so a dinosaur is going to have to be part of Mikioka's very flowing things. So every firing within the nature of artist making, then we're registering and saying, okay, this will maybe have to go into this idea. And then you ask the artist, what's your emotion? What's your feeling that you want for them? And then sometimes the artist says, oh, anything's good.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't help.
Okay.
Anything's good means that, well, we can go to Dairy Queen and we can get soft serve and nothing helps.
Right.
It just melts.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a bad analogy. But if somehow that Miki-san or Ann Meyer or yourself or Jonathan Sullivan or Frank Pitcher or all these people that are going to have work in the firing, they have an articulation of some, not an expectation, but a feeling about the piece. And you'd like to have some of those feelings possibly become an actual piece in the loading, which is very difficult. So then we want to do combination pieces with the apprentices as well, so Carter and Allison. So we're thinking about the flow of the firing, we're thinking about their point in their career, in their throwing, in discipline and making, shaping. And then we think of like how we can bring them with us to be part of the firing. So we actually then sit down together and talk over, say, okay, we'll do these pieces with these kinds of pieces, this flips over on this type of piece, then this piece is going on top of that piece, then I'll make another plate that has 5 feet that keeps that plate from warping. So then we say, okay, in this combination of stacking and Tanagashima to get the flow through, we want to have a really good flow, but sometimes every aspect of the flow is different. But if they're all together, we're all together, then if some areas are not as flowful or they maybe not has as rich a color, but other areas have richer color, which we have no control over, then they're going to get very good work and be joyful. You know, and because you have graduate students who continuously come here, and you know, you may say, can I get a little piece in the firing? And I'd like to have it in the sweet spot of the kiln. Well, what the hell does that mean? The sweet spot. I say, you're looking at the whole kiln. That whole kiln's a sweet spot. So the problem is that we're not thinking about a sweet spot. We're thinking about where things might be possible. And so doing combinations. So then what we might do is we might put one of your dinosaurs upside down on its feet, pushing into Allison's cup, and she's going to have dinosaur prints on her cup. You know, or on his plate. You know, something like that. No one's going to get that ever again, because you're only making dinosaurs once here, or 2 or 3 times. You know, that kind of thing. So if you're really seriously thinking about being focused in the immediate time, that ichio ichie, one chance.
That's a good fighting too.
Yeah. Then you don't, because we've had pieces that a little child has made, which was the exact piece we needed to put in, right in that spot. And then Daniel, in his incredible brilliance, remembers where all these damn things are. And I remember this one little, do you remember that person who came? And Daniel comes and brings her this little frog? And she just melts. She said, you remembered. You know, like, oh my God, you know, like, I wouldn't have remembered, you know, because, you know, I just not thinking like that. But Daniel thinks like that. You know, and he actually found this little tiny, what do you think, fine for Kit, that little tiny disc?
Yeah.
There's a little tiny kind of like that button, about that big. Out of all that firing, I think someone found it in the ashes.
Yeah.
And just found it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
unbelievable.
Lost.
Unbelievable.
Gets
So,
lost, yeah.
yeah, but that sincerity of treating everybody the same, because their making is never judged in the firing. The firing never judges. Only the bad making, you know, where that something's not structurally sound, the firing will tell you, right? But for someone who's making, then you want to treat them equally, or at best you can.
Yeah, I do enjoy the freedom of loading too. Firing is a little bit different.
Yeah.
You can load any sort of weight that you can find because there's no glaze on that surface.
Yeah.
And you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then I really agree that oneness of the kiln chamber. There's nothing better than anywhere.
Right.
In the kiln. Because it's you never know. You don't know.
And you know, when you have everyone's work in the firing and they open up and stoke Tanagashi and they see their piece, they're much more careful in stoking.
If you see your piece, you of course.
Oh yeah. So, you know, they have a vested interest in
Yeah.
not worried, they have to look through the flame
Yeah.
and stoke, because their piece is right there.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's good. Thank you.